Look, let me be perfectly clear about what happened. Because honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how everything went so spectacularly wrong. My name is Alara. I'm 26 years old, and I thought I had this whole dating thing, this whole life thing, figured out, until it all just detonated right in my face. And the worst part? The absolute most infuriating part? I am still not convinced any of it was actually my fault. So, let's go back. I'd been single for about 2 years. My last serious relationship didn't just end. It crashed and burned in a way that leaves scorch marks on your soul. And by single, I don't mean I was sitting at home knitting and waiting for my life to begin. I mean I was living. I was going out, meeting guys, having fun, and most importantly, not getting tangled up with anyone who wasn't worth the emotional real estate. I'd learned the hard way. Jumping into something serious too fast is a one-way ticket to heartbreak, and months of your life you can never get back. That was my mindset when I met Julian. It was at a house party my friend Piper was throwing. Her parties were always the same chaotic mix of people. Loud music, cheap beer, and guys who thought being obnoxious was a personality trait. But then I saw him. The first thing I noticed was how different he seemed. While everyone else was shouting over the music, getting wasted, he was in the corner, actually having a real conversation with someone. He had this calm, stable energy. It was like finding a quiet harbor in the middle of a hurricane. Honestly, after 2 years of navigating the choppy waters of modern dating, it was refreshing. We ended up talking for hours that night. Hours. About everything and nothing. Our jobs, the ridiculous places we'd traveled to, the inevitable family drama that everyone has. He was funny, but not in that desperate look-at-me way. He listened. I mean, he actually listened. He'd ask follow-up questions, things that showed me he wasn't just waiting for his turn to talk. He was genuinely interested in my answers. By the end of the night, I was more than just attracted to him. I was intrigued. I wanted to know more. I wanted to unpack the layers I could already sense were there. So when he asked for my number, I gave it to him. No games. Normally, I make a guy work for it a little. A bit of a chase makes things more interesting, right? But something about Julian made me want to be direct. He texted me the next day. The timing was perfect. Not so quick that he seemed desperate, not so long that he seemed disinterested. Just right. We made plans for coffee that week, and for the first time in a long time, I found myself actually looking forward to a first date. The coffee date was even better. We talked for 3 hours, and there wasn't a single awkward silence. He was just so easy to be around. He had good stories, he made me laugh, and most importantly, he looked at me like he was interested in me, Alara, the person, not just trying to figure out the fastest way to get me into bed. When he walked me to my car, he didn't try to kiss me. He didn't invite himself over. He just smiled, told me he'd had a great time, and said he really wanted to see me again. And that's when it happened. Standing there by my car, watching him walk away, I made the decision that would change everything. I decided Julian wasn't just hookup material. He wasn't casual dating material. He was boyfriend material. Maybe even marriage material. And I had learned from bitter experience that men, even the good ones, do not value what comes too easily. All those times I'd slept with a guy on the first or second date thinking our amazing connection would lead to something more, only to have them ghost me or treat me like I was suddenly disposable. A solved puzzle they were no longer interested in. No, not this time. So, I made a plan. A strategy. I was going to do things differently with Julian. I would make him wait. I would make him work for it. I would show him that I was a high-value woman, someone worth more than just a fleeting conquest. I was going to be the girl he took seriously, the one he introduced to his friends, his family, the one he couldn't imagine his life without. I was going to be the architect of our love story, and it was going to be perfect. Our second date was dinner. A cute Italian place downtown that he'd picked out. He was a perfect gentleman. opened my car door, pulled out my chair. He asked thoughtful questions about my day, remembering little details I'd mentioned on our coffee date. It felt real. When he drove me home, the energy in the car was electric. I could tell he wanted to come up. I could feel it. But I stuck to the plan. I used my practiced line. "I've had such an amazing time tonight," I said, turning to him in the passenger seat. "But I really want to take things slow. I like you a lot, and I don't want to rush something that feels this important." I watched his face carefully. I saw the flash of disappointment, but it was immediately replaced by understanding and respect. "I get that," he said, his voice soft. "I respect that. I feel the same way." He leaned in and kissed me goodnight on my doorstep. It was just a sweet, soft kiss, but it left me tingling. It left me wanting more, which was exactly the point. As I watched him drive away, a wave of satisfaction washed over me. My plan was working. It was working perfectly. We fell into a routine over the next few weeks. He was the perfect suitor. He'd pick me up for dates, museums, nice dinners, walks in the park. We'd have these incredible, deep conversations. And at the end of every night, I would be the one to gently shut things down before they got too physical. A long kiss, a lingering touch, but never more. And every single time, he respected my boundaries without making me feel weird or guilty about it. He never pushed. He'd just smile and say, "I'll see you soon." He texted me good morning every single day. He'd call in the afternoon just to chat for a few minutes. He remembered that I hated cilantro and that my favorite painter was Monet. My friends, especially Piper, started commenting on how attentive he was. "He's so into you, Alara," she'd say. "You've got him hooked." I'd just smile. Of course, he was hooked. I was designing it that way. About a month in, Julian started dropping hints about making things official, nothing pushy, just casual mentions of the future. We should go to that concert in a couple of months. Or he'd ask if I wanted to meet some of his friends for drinks that weekend. I could feel him getting more invested. And every time he showed it, it was like another brick being laid in the foundation of the relationship I was building. The longer I made him wait, the more valuable I became in his eyes. Of course, the physical tension was becoming intense. Our makeout sessions were getting longer, hotter. I could feel how hard it was for him to stop when I put on the brakes. But that just proved my strategy was working. He wanted me more because he couldn't have me yet. It's basic psychology. Meanwhile, I had needs. I wasn't about to become a nun just because I was playing the long game with Julian. Before I met him, I had a few guys I was casually seeing. There was Blake, who I'd been hooking up with on and off for months. He was fun, convenient, and completely, 100% not boyfriend material. We both knew the score. Occasionally, if I was bored or frustrated, I'd match with someone on a dating app. It wasn't cheating. Let me be clear about that. Julian and I were not exclusive. We hadn't had the talk. Technically, we were still just dating. I was just being smart. I was handling my own physical needs so that I could keep a clear head and focus on the emotional connection with Julian. I was careful, of course. I never posted anything on social media. I never brought it up in conversation. I made sure I was always available when Julian wanted to see me. As far as he knew, I was just this girl who moved slowly, a girl who valued an emotional foundation above all else. And the beautiful, perfect part of it all? Julian was falling for exactly that image. He started saying things like, "It's so refreshing to meet someone who isn't in a rush," or, "I really appreciate your approach to relationships. You're so different from other girls I've dated." Now, every time he said something like that, I felt this surge of pride. I was so smart. I had figured out the secret code. I was building something real, something that would last, by being methodical and in control. I was the architect, and the blueprints were flawless. By month 2, I could tell he was getting antsy. Not in a bad way, not pushy. But I could see the effort it was taking him to be so patient. He'd suggest we spend more time at his place, just cooking dinner and watching a movie. He'd try to plan more intimate date nights. He was testing the waters, trying to gauge how much longer I wanted to wait. I kept giving him these vague but reassuring answers. I just love how our connection is growing, or I don't want to rush something this special. No. The truth was, I was getting antsy too. Julian was gorgeous. All that built-up tension was driving me crazy sometimes. But I had to stick to the plan. I was so close. The longer I waited, the more he would appreciate it when it finally happened. He'd feel like he had earned something special, something worth waiting for. 3 months in, and Julian was more invested than any guy I had ever dated. He'd started leaving a toothbrush and a change of clothes at my apartment. He was talking about weekend trips we could take in the fall. He'd even hinted about me meeting his parents the next time they were in town. I could practically see the word girlfriend forming on his lips. Everything was going exactly according to my perfect plan. 3.5 months. That's how long we'd been in this. Whatever it was. And I was feeling more confident than ever about where we were heading. The hints about making things official were getting heavier. He'd started using "we" all the time when talking about future plans. Last week, he'd even asked what I was doing for the holidays, which were still months away. That Friday night, he invited me over to his place to cook dinner together. This wasn't unusual, we'd been doing these cozy domestic things more often. But something about this time felt different. Maybe it was the way he suggested we open that nice bottle of wine he'd been saving. Or how he'd cleaned his apartment until it was spotless. I had a feeling. A strong one. Tonight was the night. Tonight he was finally going to ask me to be his girlfriend. We were in his kitchen. The smell of garlic and basil filled the air. The wine was smooth and delicious. The conversation was flowing as easily as it always did. Julian kept giving me these looks. These soft, intense looks like he had something important on his mind. I was mentally preparing my answer for when he brought up exclusivity. A calm, happy, yes. Of course, yes. This was the moment I had been working towards for months. Then, somehow, and I honestly can't remember who brought it up, first we started talking about our dating histories. It wasn't a heavy conversation. It was light, casual. Just sharing funny stories about exes and disastrous dates. Julian was being so sweet and vulnerable, and the whole vibe felt so intimate, so safe. I felt so comfortable, so completely connected to him, that I started opening up more than I usually would. I told him how I hadn't been in a serious relationship in a couple of years, how I'd been taking time to figure out what I really wanted. He seemed genuinely interested, asking thoughtful questions. And that's when he asked it. The question that felt so innocent at the time. "So," he said, swirling the wine in his glass. "How did you handle being single for so long? 2 years is a while." He wasn't being judgmental. It was just genuine curiosity about my life before him. And because I felt so close to him, and because the wine had made me a little too talkative, a little too relaxed, I was honest. "Oh, I said with a little laugh. I had some casual arrangements here and there, nothing serious." I saw something shift in his expression. It was subtle, a slight tightening around his eyes, a stillness in his body. "So?" I tried to elaborate, to make it clear. "It was just friends with benefits type situations. You know how it is, we're adults. We have needs." I thought he would understand. I expected him to nod, maybe even share a similar story. But instead, he got this weird look on his face. He put his wine glass down on the counter. "Were these arrangements recent?" he asked. His voice was quiet, controlled. I could feel a little knot of anxiety start to form in my stomach. I could practically see the gears turning in his head, the math he was starting to do. I tried to keep things light. "The past is the past, right?" I laughed, trying to steer the conversation back to safer territory. But he wasn't letting it go. Then he asked the question that made my stomach drop to the floor. "Alara, are you talking about while we've been seeing each other?" The way he said it, so careful, so precise. I knew this conversation was about to go somewhere I did not want it to go. I could have lied. I should have lied. But I'd already said too much. The breadcrumbs were already there. So, I told him the truth. Or, my version of it. Well, yeah, I said, trying to sound casual, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. There was some overlap at the beginning, but it wasn't a big deal. We weren't exclusive, remember? Julian just stood there, his back against the counter, processing that information. The silence in the kitchen was suddenly deafening. I rushed to explain, to fix it, but it was completely different from what you and I have, I said quickly, stepping closer to him. Those other guys, they were just physical, meaningless hookups. They had nothing to do with my feelings. What you and I have is emotional. It's real. That's exactly why I wanted to take things slow with you. To protect this. Instead of being reassured, his expression hardened. He started asking more questions. Specific questions. How many guys? How recently? Are any of them people you're still in contact with? Each question felt like a cross-examination, like he was building a case against me. I was getting frustrated. Why was he focusing on this? I tried to redirect again to remind him of us. Julian, what does any of that matter? What matters is what we have, what we've been building. But he wasn't having it. You've been telling me for months that you wanted to take things slow because you really liked me, he said, his voice dangerously low. Because you wanted to build something serious. But apparently, you didn't feel the need to take things slow with other guys during that exact same time period. And that's when I realized how bad this was. I could see the disappointment in his eyes. It was a physical thing, like a light being switched off. I could feel him pulling away from me emotionally, even though we were standing just a few feet apart in his beautiful, clean kitchen. All those months of careful planning. All that time I'd spent crafting the perfect image of myself as the ideal girlfriend. It was all crumbling. Because of one honest, stupid conversation. The silence in that kitchen was suffocating. I was desperately trying to figure out how to salvage the situation, how to rewind the last 10 minutes. I genuinely didn't understand why he was making such a huge deal out of this. What did he expect? That I'd been living like a monk, sitting around waiting for him to grace my life with his presence? You're completely misunderstanding. I tried again, my voice starting to shake a little. Those other guys were just physical releases. Like going to the gym, they were meaningless. What you and I have is real, it's deep. That's why I was so careful with it. I was honoring it by waiting. But Julian just kept shaking his head, a look of grim discovery on his face. You're telling me, he said, and I could hear the anger finally creeping into his voice, that you respect me so much that you won't sleep with me. He took a step forward. But you'll sleep with guys you barely know. How does that work, Alara? Explain that to me. How does that make any sense? I was getting frustrated now. He was being so black and white, so simplistic. Real relationships are complicated, I shot back. I was trying to navigate between my physical needs and building something meaningful with you. Why can't you see that I was actually trying to protect what we have? The tension was unbearable. I could feel everything I'd worked for slipping through my fingers like sand. So, I made a decision. A last-ditch effort. It seemed logical at the time. I moved closer to him, putting my hands on his arms. I looked directly into his eyes. Maybe we've waited long enough, I said softly. Talking about all this, it's made me realize how much I care about you. I'm ready, Julian. I'm ready to take the next step, if you are. I expected him to be relieved, happy even. This was what he wanted, right? But instead of pulling me closer, he actually stepped back. He pulled his arms away from my touch. He looked at me as if I'd just proven whatever terrible point he was trying to make in his head. Now you're ready? He asked, his voice dripping with something that sounded like contempt. Right now, after this conversation, suddenly you don't need to wait anymore? It's not like that, I stammered, panicking. Realizing how much our connection means to me, it's changed my perspective. But he wasn't buying it. Not for a second. No, he said, his voice flat. It feels like you're only offering this because you got caught, like it's a bargaining chip to fix this, not because you actually want to be with me. I started to panic. I could see him shutting down completely. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. We were supposed to be getting closer. We were supposed to be becoming official. Instead, he was looking at me like I was a stranger, like I was some kind of manipulative monster. He was quiet for a long, agonizing moment. And when he finally spoke, his voice was devoid of all emotion. "I think you should go home, Alara," he said. "I need some time to think about all of this." I knew it right then. I had lost him. All those months of patience. All that time he'd spent being so understanding and attentive. And he was throwing it all away because of his own insecurities. His own inability to handle a woman with a life before him. I had been honest with him when he asked a direct question. And somehow, that made me the bad guy. I barely slept that night. I just kept replaying the conversation over and over, trying to pinpoint the exact moment it all went wrong. And the more I thought about it, the more furious I became. He was being completely and totally unreasonable. What guy gets this upset about a girl having a past, or, in this case, a present that didn't involve him? I decided to give him the weekend to cool off, to come to his senses. On Monday, I sent him a text. "I hope we can talk things through like adults." His response, hours later, was short and distant. "Not sure what there is to talk about." Nothing like his usual warm messages. Not even an emoji. That's when I knew. He was seriously considering ending things over this. Nothing. By Tuesday, I was getting desperate. I called him during my lunch break. It went straight to voicemail. I sent another long text, explaining again that I understood why he might be confused, but that what we had was too special to throw away. His response was even worse. "I need more time to process what you told me." Process? What was there to process? By Friday, exactly 1 week after everything had blown up, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I was done waiting for him to be an adult. I decided to go over to his apartment after work, whether he wanted to see me or not. We needed to have a real conversation, not this childish avoidance game he was playing. When Julian opened the door, he looked tired. Defeated. Not angry anymore, just done. And somehow, that felt so much worse than if he'd been yelling. I didn't wait for him to speak. I launched into the whole speech I had rehearsed in the car, about how I understood his concerns, but that he was completely overreacting, that what we had was real and worth fighting for, that I had been trying to protect our connection by taking things slow, not disrespect him. He listened to every word without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When I finally ran out of steam, he just sighed and said, "Do you want to come in?" For a second, a tiny flicker of hope ignited in my chest. Maybe I was getting through to him. But when we sat down on his living room couch, the couch where we'd cuddled and watched movies, I could tell from his body language that this wasn't a negotiation. It was a verdict. "I've been thinking about this all week, Alara," he began, his voice steady. "And I already knew what was coming. I don't think we want the same things." The conversation went on for over an hour. It was excruciating. Nothing I said made any difference. No argument, no plea. He was polite but completely firm. He said he respected my right to make my own choices, but that those choices had consequences. And the consequence was that he couldn't be with someone who operated the way I did. "It's not about the sex, Alara," he said at one point, looking at me with those tired, disappointed eyes. "It's about the honesty. For 3.5 months, you presented yourself as one person, a person who valued emotional intimacy over physical intimacy so much that you were willing to wait. But that wasn't the truth. The whole foundation. It feels like it was a lie." I left his apartment that night knowing it was really, truly over. 3.5 months of careful construction, of perfect architecture, all destroyed. Destroyed by his inability to understand that I had been trying to do things right for once. It's been 10 months now since Julian ended things. And I'm still processing how completely and unfairly it all went down. I tried dating again, but honestly, it's been terrible. Somehow word got around our mutual friend group about what happened. Piper is still my friend, but things are weird. I started getting strange reactions from people, awkward silences when I walked into a room. The worst part was finding out people were talking about me behind my back. Apparently, Julian had shared his version of events with a few of his close friends, and they'd told their girlfriends, and suddenly, everyone had an opinion about my personal life, about my choices. About 6 months after we broke up, I ran into him at the grocery store. He was with a girl. Honestly, there was nothing special about her. Kind of plain, a little mousy, definitely not as put together as I am, but it wasn't her that made my stomach clench. It was the way he was looking at her while she was picking out an avocado. It was this look of such gentle, unguarded affection. The kind of look he used to give me. This is what he chose. Over me. I found out later, through the grapevine, that they'd been together for 3 months and were already talking about getting a place together. 3 months. She got the commitment I couldn't get from him after 3.5. It's honestly insulting. The really messed up part is how I keep hearing about how happy Julian is now. How he's in a much better place since we broke up. Excuse me? I was the one who was trying to build something real with him. But apparently, I was the problem. I even started going to therapy. Not because I think I did anything wrong, but because I needed help dealing with how unfairly I was treated. My therapist keeps trying to push me to examine my role in what happened, to take accountability. But how am I supposed to take accountability for Julian's insecurities and his ridiculous double standards? The thing that really, truly gets to me is how everyone acts like I'm the villain in this story. Like I was supposed to be some perfect, innocent virgin who had been waiting her whole life for Prince Julian to show up. That's not realistic. And it is not fair to expect that from any adult woman in the 21st century. I've had to basically start over socially because our old friend group chose sides. And guess who they chose? The guy who couldn't handle dating a woman with experience. I lost friends. I lost what I thought was the beginning of my future. And for what? Because I was honest about my life when he asked a direct question. Then, about 8 months after our breakup, I saw it on social media. Julian and his new plain girlfriend were engaged. Engaged. After less than a year together. Meanwhile, I had spent almost 4 months meticulously trying to build something with him, and got nothing but heartbreak and a ruined reputation for my efforts. The engagement news broke something in me. Not because I still wanted him. I didn't. But because it proved I had been right all along about what he really wanted. He didn't want a real, complex partner. He wanted someone simple. Someone who would make him feel special and important. Someone who would stroke his fragile ego and make him feel like he was the prize. But everyone around us was acting like this was some beautiful love story. Like Julian had finally found the one after wasting his time with someone like me. It was infuriating to watch people rewrite history, pretending what we had was meaningless when I knew how much I had meant to him. The final insult came 2 months ago. I heard they'd gotten married. A small ceremony with just family and close friends. The kind of intimate, beautiful wedding I had always dreamed of having. And of course, everyone was gushing about how perfect it was, how in love they looked. I realized then that I'd lost more than just a boyfriend when things ended with Julian. I'd lost my entire vision of what my life was supposed to look like. All those plans I'd been making, all that future I'd been building toward, it was all gone. Because he couldn't handle the truth about who I really was. So, here I am. Almost a year later. Still single. And still angry. Not because I did anything wrong. But because I live in a world where men say they want an honest, independent woman, but then punish you for being one. Where being a real, complex human being is somehow less valuable than being some perfect, boring fantasy. I'm not the same person I was when I met Julian. I'm harder now, more guarded, less willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. And honestly, maybe that's for the better. Maybe I needed to learn that not everyone deserves access to the real me. That some people simply aren't worthy of my authenticity. I've learned my lesson though. The next guy I get serious with isn't going to hear a single thing about my past. Not because I'm ashamed, but because apparently, men can't handle the truth. If Julian had just focused on us instead of interrogating me about my history, we'd probably be married by now. Instead, I'm here, alone, while he's playing house with some woman who was either smart enough to lie about her past or just boring enough not to have one. But I know who I am, and I know what I bring to the table. Some people just aren't mature enough to handle a woman like me. The next guy who wants to be with me is going to have to earn it, in ways Julian never did. And if he can't handle the full truth of who I am, then he doesn't deserve me at all. Some of us are just too real for this fake world.